It is 8:10 Newstalk Sauga 960 Raw. Mike Richards on a Monday, but normally Mondays, as they say, they don't like them, but I like them today. Paul Hendrick, our good friend Henny, who announced that after, is it 41 years? 41 years, I think, is deciding that he is going to hang it up, at least for the time being anyway. And from what he was doing, that's not to say or preclude that there couldn't be something else, but he hangs them up. There's a lot of people, I think, around, certainly around this country who understand what that means. As we said beforehand, I don't know if there's a better guy and certainly a better professional. We've known him for a long time. So thrilled that Paul Hendrick, the pride, is it the Sault Ste. Marie? Is it the Sioux?
Well, you know what? 2 years of broadcasting, Mike, but let's localize it. Lauren Park Secondary in Southwest Mississauga, my friend. Yes.
You're a fancy schmancy Lauren Park type.
Yes. I remember fall of '74, we played a preseason game. We thought we had a good team, and we played Northern Secondary, who went on to win the Toronto Championship that year. And I'll tell you, man, we're a fairly sedate group, but we had a great team at Lauren Park. But that team from Northern, coached by Bob Pulford's brother Clark, they took out our top halfback, a guy named Ron Fisher, who went on to work at Peel Regional Police and then Southern Methodist University on a track and football scholarship. Wow. Broke his collarbone in that game. 9 weeks later, Ron's back and fumbles 4 times. Unfortunately, as he got hit hard against Gordon Graydon, we lost that playoff game. And all of us will never forget it. And that's Northern Secondary's legacy. So, but anyway, let's get I'm over it, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, it's just water off a duck's back right there. He's huddled in the fetal position, crying into his pillow every night. I didn't realize I was going to bring up such a sore memory. But, boy, that's... Now, look, so first of all, when the news comes down, give or take about a week ago, when you announced your retirement, it certainly would have been, for those of us, a surprise, only because the pandemic has sort of separated us from certain connections that we would normally have. Is this something that you have thought about for a while? Because after 41 years, you start to think about maybe what you want to do with kind of the rest of your life. You're someone that is very engaging. When I see a lot of your stuff from certainly overseas to do with a lot of world history, certainly World War II. My brother's a historian, so it's almost like reading my brother's material when I see the pictures, and because it's infinitely just so fascinating. But I'm just curious, why now and why the retirement for those listening and watching here today?
Well, Mike, and you can relate to this. 5 years ago, my wife Alicia's diagnosed with cancer and ovarian cancer. And, that was November 8th, 2015. I get the phone call. I'm in Dallas with the hockey club, a road trip that included another game in Phoenix or in Nashville. And boy, oh boy, the world's turned upside down. How are we going to deal with this? How are we going to tell the kids, parents, all of these things? I said to Alicia, I'm flying home first thing tomorrow. She said, no, you're not. You're going to stay there, do the game, and do the next game, because I've got a month to go before we start, surgery and all that other stuff. And my wife's a physician at Credit Valley Hospital, an infectious disease physician. And anyway, so we proceeded through all that, surgery, chemo, and then 3.5 good, clean years. And then a recurrence. Last September, I'm getting ready to fly to Detroit for an exhibition game. Phone call, I'm at the airport. It's come back. Subsequent chemo, which lasted until April 12th, when she got to ring the bell on a virtual Zoom call. And now we're into that next stage. And I knew last October that we want to take advantage of the good time we have. And there's so much good modern medicine, these inhibitors now that are extending time between recurrences. Let's take advantage of all of this. And as tough as it was to leave, it was the right decision, and we're enjoying ourselves now. We hope to get to Spain and at some point and spend a little bit of time and do all that you get to do, but not take a single day for granted. So that's basically in a nutshell. And boy, oh boy, leaving the Leafs, it was hard, but it was the right decision.
Well, hey, Henny, congratulations now that I'm seeing you face to face. Loved working with you. We talked about it last week just with some of our viewers because we got tons of tweets and you're so loved in this area. From a personal standpoint, thank you for everything you've done for me personally. Working on the beat together for a couple of years, not too long ago. Time really flies, though. You said you're in this for 40 years. Did you start the Leafs beat when you were 10, or
it feels like it, Dave. You know, I remember. First of all, Channel 11, we got an opportunity the last 2 years. Gordy Stellick and I to co-host those games, and then CHCH lost the rights, and then I had an opportunity to go and work for Molson Sports and Entertainment, and I got a call from Ron Harrison Sr., who was covering Tiger at the Open in Oakville. I think it was his first one, and I was just blown away. And you know, I found out I was the third guy for the job. Scott Oak and Scott Russell had been offered the position, and I was next man up. And I remember telling my wife when I accepted the position, if I still have this job in December, I'm going to consider myself a lucky man. You know, you have confidence, but not as much confidence. But you just got to say, well, hell with it. We're going to leave this comfortable, cozy job that I've had for 17 years at CHCH and take the next step. Well, it was a worthwhile juncture. But, you know, it's sort of advice to everybody out there. And whatever you do, you may not be the first choice. Don't take it personally. But if you get an opportunity, take that opportunity and run with it. And I never look back. You got to meet so many nice people. Didn't get to cover a Stanley Cup, although came close on a couple of occasions. And I'll be just cheering on this current group over the next year to maybe 5 years before they finally get it done, because this team, I think, is going to be that good.
We're in conversation with Paul Hendrick here on Newstalk Sauga 960 Raw, Mike Richards. And you know, it's funny, you know, you talk to maybe reporters or those who have covered sports in Boston, and I'm like, you guys have a parade of some kind every second week. I mean, well, I never feel sorry for you. I mean, just some cities have that. When you're here in Toronto, and again, not that other teams haven't had parades and championships, but because it is, and I'm not even going to say it's a hockey town, because I don't consider it to be a hockey town. It is a Leaf town. There's an obvious Leaf obsession, and you know but it just goes to tell you that it is so hard to win in this league. This is a hard league. Even the worst team on its you know, on any given night can play the best team, and if the best team doesn't give the proverbial 110%, they'll probably lose. This is not, and the Leafs have assembled some of the greatest talent, I think, that maybe they've ever had in this style, in this era of hockey, where it can be a track meet sometimes. And if you have two lines that can fly, boy, you give yourself a chance, but you still at some point got to play with the big boys. And that's where I take a look at the Bostons and the Tampa Bays and, you know, just some of these teams that are built not only with the hands they have now, Henny, but the size that they have. The goalies are big. But everyone can skate too. It is a hard league to win.
Yeah, and especially to go long. And I agree. Now, this series coming up against Columbus, you know, Mike and Dave, it's going to be a roll of the dice, a crapshoot. It's going to be an indoor game sprint, 60 yards. And well, you better get off quickly and win that first game. And that's sort of the analogy I'll use with that. I think that series goes either 3 or it goes 5. It's not going to go 4. But this current Leaf team, we'll see how far they're able to go. You know, you talked about how hard it is to win. And you look at Washington, St. Louis. Who else am I missing in terms of teams who waited for Detroit Red Wings so long? You know, Steve Yzerman was in his 30s before he won that first Stanley Cup. You have to learn how to win. This current group, at least that very elite core, they're into the postseason for their 4th successive year. And I think the learning process will continue. And I'm not saying they're going to win it all this year, but I think if they get good goaltending like they should and expect from Frederik Andersen, they've got a chance to do some things. And the prerequisite for all of this, 3 healthy pairs of defense for the first time the entire season. We'll see how it all goes. They're playing a big, heavy, defensive-minded team in Columbus, but it should be a great series of 2 very different styles coming head-to-head. Columbus knows that they're going to have to score some goals, but the Leafs are going to have to adjust defensively as well. I just think with those 3 healthy defensive pairs, they're going to be much better in their own zone.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to that. That all kicks off on Saturday. The Leafs play on the Sunday, but more on that in a bit. With the position you had, Henny, over the last while, you got a chance. Obviously, this is one of the most historical teams in the world. Not just in hockey, but in the world. So many Hall of Famers come through wearing a Maple Leaf sweater. Unfortunately, with timing and us talking on the Monday, the passing of Eddie Shack.
Yeah.
You probably got a chance to meet Eddie several times. Any takeaways from meeting the entertainer as we did earlier on? We replayed an interview we had with Shack, and I'm guessing you probably had a couple more meetings with the hockey great.
Yes, the last 15 or so years, I think, Dave, there was no filter when it came with Eddie, and that went with emceeing a bunch of events. At the Sunnybrook Veterans Hospital, and he just let it all out. And they, of course, were all extremely entertained. But I'll tell you, the story I remember about Eddie, and I was in grade 13 at Lauren Park down at Maple Leaf Gardens watching the St. Louis Blues play the Toronto Maple Leafs. Eddie was on the bench at age 37 for almost the entire game. Leafs had lost that game, and time was running out, and the crowd was going, "We want Shaq. We want Shaq." Well, Eddie comes out and elbows a couple of guys, and he had the Plaguers and everybody after. And it was literally like a track meet, the indoor games, Toronto Star indoor games, as they tried to get at him. And anyway, he got to the bench unscathed, and the scoreboard said, "You asked for him. You got him." They didn't, and it was chaotic to watch him out there and enjoying himself, knowing that his career was just about over. I think he had another year of pro hockey, and that was it. Just loved the game. I remember those big hands, and he was dumb as a fox. He came up with a bit of a rube, but he was a lot brighter than that.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? And you also bring up a point too. If you hadn't had met him, he's a much bigger man than probably people thought.
Yeah, he's thick.
Yeah.
He was thick.
Yeah.
And those mitts. And you get to run into the guys from now. I know, I'm just reading, there are 12 members of that 67 championship team still alive. Another being Jimmy Pappin, who we'd see on our trips to California. He lives near Anaheim, and just the big hands. And they never looked that big while they played. The only guy who looks the same, I think, is Dave Keon. Dave was sort of slight then. He's slight now. Yeah. But Bobby Bond, I can go on and on. These are just big, thick men. And the same could be said for Eddie. He was truly an entertainer, and it was sad to see him go at age 83.
Well, I can't believe how fast. I knew this would go way too fast, but I'm going to try to squeeze in as much as I can. Of course, I worked, a couple of years at Y95 myself and Jeff Lumby, which were great times. And of course, my heritage kind of goes back through Hamilton, as my dad went to Mac, my brother went to Mac, my mom went to Westdale. And of course, I've always been a massive Ticat fan, and you never lose that. And I think, for people who haven't been to Hamilton or don't go to Hamilton, to me, summers in the Hammer, I just love the people. Like, I really do. There's something very, very special, whether you're up on the mountain or you're in Westdale or down on Barton Street. I can understand why it would be easy to stay in that environment in Hamilton, even those people listening going, "What are you talking about? Isn't it industrial and dirty?" No, it's very, very human, and it's very, very blue collar. And I loved every second that I was there. And as I said, I come by it naturally, but I look at those days that you must have had for all those years on Channel 11, which was iconic in the area. That wouldn't be an easy move. And I'm sure you still must miss it to a degree.
Oh, I do, and it was a family back then for all of us. Dan McLean, Connie Smith, Matt Hayes, Ken Welch, Fred Anderton, and Kathy Renwell, all of those people. And, you mentioned your mom at Westdale, and I think of Westdale immediately. I think of Russ Jackson, Dirty 30, Jim Young, Harry Howell's younger brother, Ron, who went right to the Tiger Cats from high school football. Harry Neal taught math at Westdale Secondary, and across the street, Patty Green's, where a lot of young Hamiltonians cut their underage drinking teeth. It's now a car dealership, but it's a great end of town, and there's so many stories. And it is blue collar. It's a town of character. Both my kids were born there. My wife was educated in medical school there. We have nothing but thanks and praise for that great city.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. I know that in issues where you're dealing with a loved one that has cancer, or someone like myself that had to look in the mirror and actually had to think about mortality at some point, it is there's a weight to it. But I will say this, that And of course, your wife being a physician sort of it puts it into a whole different ball game. But it is that faith in each other. It is that faith of knowing that you're loved. It's that feeling that that whatever comes your way, you'll deal with it when it comes. And I think that you're taking this time to do that together. You know, as people get into their mid 50s, late 50s, 60s, you know, you want to use that time because we're still relatively young people, and the attitude is all important. And what you have done and what you have decided, and you've done it publicly, which I think is very admirable. And I also think it's important for others who are going through what you're going through, and that is to take it head on. You know, you know, embrace the love you have for each other, and realize that indeed is more important than probably covering the next Columbus Leaf game. That's what you've done by example, but you've always, to me, led by example. So I wish you the best of luck. I hope when the pandemic is over, I actually get to sit down and see you at some point, which would be nice. But certainly the best to you, your family, your lovely wife, and we wish you all the best, because we know, at least in my heart, you will get the best because you deserve the best.
Absolutely well said, Mike. Dave, from the bottom of my heart, profound thanks, and we'll get a chance to do this again soon, I hope.
Absolutely. Thanks, Henny. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Henny.
Take care, guys.
That is Paul Hendrick, one of our all-time favorites. Always will be, joining us here on a Monday, which is makes it the best Monday we've probably had since we've been on this radio station.
So true. So true.